And now I'm pleased to be joined by Dom from Dead Reynolds.
How you doing? Thanks for having me.
Hey, how you doing?
All good, and it's a lovely sunny day. I think spring's sprung,
Just about.
and obviously we're hearing that we've got a bit of a roadmap. So let's think that maybe in a few months we can get a bit more back to normal.
Yeah, and we're looking forward to that. So I've been following you guys for about a year. I actually was given your EP Frontier to review about a year ago. Was it when did that come out? Was it March or?
No, it was a bit later than that. It was actually August. I think it was August from memory. The first EP, Souls, came out the previous year, I think in March, and then Frontier was last year. It was actually almost over lockdown. We recorded all the tracks just before the first lockdown had finished. Had started, sorry, but
yeah,
came out in the August, yeah.
Yeah, so a few months after that. Well, yeah, so I was given that to review, and it just blew me away. Like, I'd never heard of you guys, but I'd sort of seen your name floating around, but hadn't actually had a chance to listen to you guys before. And then that EP was just brilliant. But for anyone that's not aware, obviously we've played you guys quite a lot on the show, but for anyone not aware, tell us a little bit about Dead Reynolds.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so we're based in and around the Cambridge, Peterborough area. We've been together a couple of years. We sort of formed off the back of a couple of other local bands, The First and Phoenix Calling, which did quite well in the local scene and sort of nationally as well. Had some albums and bits and pieces, and we knew each other from those bands, and we got going September 18. We didn't really do a great deal till 19, really, as we've already said. Did an EP called Souls, and then, as you just alluded to, did Frontier last year. And I think what we do is, you know, without realising unintentionally, is we sort of bridge genres a little bit. I think some people think we're pop punk, other people think we're alt rock. We've got a little bit of grunge in there as well, a little bit of classic rock probably. So I think we sort of try and, we've managed to bridge some genres. I think we're quite difficult to pigeonhole, which I quite like, actually.
Yeah, no, it's brilliant. As said, there's a great versatility, because one of the things I said in my review was how a couple of the songs did sound sort of pop punky, and then you've got sort of the Bright Lights was one of them that is a lot more sort of alt rock sort of thing, even going a bit like heavy as well. So. Yeah,
and I think that's not been intentional. The songs have come out how they've come out, and we released a single called Voices a couple of months ago, or back in November, and that was much more produced. And people were saying, "Oh, it's a bit like some of the old Bring Me the Horizon sort of stuff," and without sort of meaning to be like that, it's just how it's come out.
Yeah, so I think what you're listening to, you're picking up anyway, aren't you? In this.
Yeah, and the Frontier was very much more pop punk. I think two or three of the lads are very heavily into their pop punk stuff and all that. But I think if you listen, there are nods to a number of other genres and bands and other stuff as well. So, I mean, somebody actually said to me once, "Oh, you like all of my favourite bands rolled into one," and I'm like, "Well, we'll take that." So, you know, we've carried on with that.
Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I think one of the bands that I sort of suggested was Alter Bridge. You had a bit of a Alter Bridge vibe to you as well, which is another one that sort of bridges genres a little bit. They're not.
We're massive Alter Bridge. I mean, I'm a massive Alter Bridge fan. I've been from the beginning. From a vocal perspective, I think Miles Kennedy is unreal, to be honest.
Yeah.
And from being a guitarist, I think Mark Tremonti and Miles together are brilliant. But I think you're right. Their earlier albums were probably a bit more melodic and more kind of alt rock. Their newer stuff is probably almost verging on metal in places.
Yeah,
metalcore almost. But yeah, you're right. They bridge genres, and we're all big fans of Alter Bridge and that kind of sound.
Yeah, perfect. So you've got a new single out, Bright Lights, but obviously it's not the first time we've heard it.
No, so it was on Frontier. We never really considered it a single. We felt the other three songs on there were probably stronger singles. But we just felt that we had to put something out, given that we couldn't get into the studio because of the third lockdown. So the only thing we got recorded was Bright Lights. But we just felt, well, you know, let's try and reimagine it. So we allowed our producer, Jack Murphy, almost free license on the track. And we sort of said, we want to release it as a single, you know, can we get together and change it or bring it up to date? And what you're hearing now is kind of the product of us working together again and almost reimagining it. It's the same song, but you'll notice there's different parts to it, and obviously much more production than there was on the EP.
Was there anything particular you wanted to change about it, or you literally just wanted to refresh it a little bit?
That was it. It's just a refresh, and I think we just felt that, given that we'd had Voices out back in November, which was much more heavily produced, that it'd be nice to try and follow that vibe. They were both kind of lockdown singles, if that's what you want to sort of term them as. And we sort of gave Jack the ability to do what he wanted to. And actually, that what you're hearing now is probably the third or fourth incarnation of that track. There was a few others before that were a bit more off the wall, which we didn't actually go with in the end. And this was the one we felt that probably it still kept the essence of the old track, still kept the essence of us as a band, but kind of brought it up to date and refreshed it.
It sort of lifted it a little bit as well, because it was a really good song. I liked the song before the original, but it did have a sort of, like you said, extra polish on it, sort of thing, didn't it? That just really brought it up a little bit.
I think so. And what I am finding is the more and more time we spend with Jack, and the more things we do with him, and we're there probably once a week, twice a week, or we certainly were before the third lockdown, and we're getting together on calls and stuff. He's becoming more of that sixth member of the band, and you know, that's a bit of a kind of cheesy statement, and you hear bands say it all the time, but it really is that way. I mean, he knows the songs as well as we do. He comes to us with ideas and says, "I've been listening to this track. You know, why don't we do this?" So he's kind of pushing us in a direction that we're naturally going in anyway. But it just we've never worked with a producer before. We've only really worked with a recording engineer, and then kind of whatever we've said to do, they've done, and that's the track. But he's got so many different ideas about, you know, chord structures and the key you play things in, and when a chorus should drop and vocals as well. So I think we've really benefited from having him on board.
Yeah, it sounds like he's a really good producer, the sort that will actually push you in, like you said, they'll push you in the direction that you need to go to sort of be better yourself, sort of thing. But you may not necessarily get there yourself without that little sort of push in the right direction.
I think as well, you need to spend time. You need to build that relationship. We went to Jack in 2019 with a bunch of songs, which eventually turned into the EP Souls. And if I think back now about how that process, it largely was, these are the songs, let's record them. He mixed and mastered it, and we put it out. If you then compare that to the way to how Frontier was developed, which was pre-production sessions, demo sessions, recording sessions, the process was totally different. But I think you can really hear that if you compare the two EPs. And now if you compare the newer stuff like Voices and Bright Lights, it's taken another step up.
Yeah.
And I think it's just about building that relationship, and just, you know, we're there for the long haul, and, you know, hopefully we'll be with him for as long as the band's together. So it's a good working relationship.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds good. So as we mentioned, you obviously got a new album coming out as well, along with this CD, this single. So which is Breathe with Strangers. It's coming out in August, I believe, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean that date is still a little bit kind of it's not really set in stone, and only today I was talking to the management company and PR company, because it strikes me that unless we can actually tour the album, you know, I think we should probably sit on it a little bit longer. I think it'd be wrong to release it and then not being able to do a launch show, and then potentially 6, 8, 10 dates to promote it. And I think whilst we've got the roadmap that Boris has given us, it's not set in stone. And I think until we're 3 or 4 months down the road, or 2 to 3 months down the road, we're not going to know whether shows are going to come back and all that sort of thing. So yes, it is penciled in for, I think it's August the 20th, but that may have to move to September or October, depending on what happens.
Yeah, no, that's what I was saying. I'm in a band myself, and we released our debut EP about 2 weeks after the first lockdown started. So, but it was already organised. We had a couple of gigs set up for sort of the week after, and then it's sort of like we're now nearly a year later, and it's still not been able to play it.
I mean, what we're finding is, and I think like anybody, any band, is once the roadmap was announced, was it early this week? Every venue now we're contacting is just booked up, because what they're doing is, and you might have found the same, they're honouring any tours or shows that were postponed last year. We're trying to put dates together for October, November to kind of get 8 to 10 dates across the UK, and already we're finding venues are almost saturated.
Yeah.
Because of just because of previous bookings, or they've been so busy, and I get it, because they've not earned any money for a year, so they're going to want to put events and shows on.
Yeah, definitely, as many as they can get, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. So obviously we're hoping for a tour after that. You got any ideas of cities you plan on coming down to Bristol?
If you'll have us, I mean, I think
Hey,
we'd
I'll
I
be
think
there.
I think we'd probably go anywhere, to be honest. We'll obviously do some around our local area. We've got Cambridge. We'll do a launch probably in Kings Lynn, which is where some of the lads are from. We'd like to do London. We've got a good, really good relationship with the Black Heart. We've played there so many times. Birmingham we'll always do because we've got a bit of a fan base there. So it's just where else we can go. But yeah, we'd absolutely go wherever will be had, so to speak. So
Well,
maybe
as close as you get, I'll come and see you.
maybe we do a show together. You just said you're in a band. Maybe we'll
Yeah.
do it together. Why not? Let's set that up.
Do it. Well, we're going to play your new single now anyway. So if you want to go ahead and introduce it.
Thanks very much. This is Dead Reynolds with Bright Lights.